1964, Dearborn, Michigan. A Ford engineer cuts a transmission case in half on a bandsaw and finds the reason his gearboxes keep dying. It was not the gears, it was the hole. Every four-speed in Detroit had one, a rectangular opening cut into the side of the case, sealed with a bolted steel plate. That was the service door. That was how a mechanic got inside without tearing the whole unit down. Chevrolet built the Muncie that way. Chrysler built the A833 that way. Borg-Warner built the T10 that way, and Ford was buying T10s by the trainload and bolting them behind everything from Fairlines to Cobras. They kept coming back broken. Here's the thing. A transmission case is not a box, it is a structural member. It holds two parallel shafts in alignment while the engine twists one end and the drive shaft twists the other. Cut a door into the side of that member and you have removed metal from the exact place the load travels. Ford did not answer with stronger gears. Ford did not answer with bigger bearings. Ford moved the door to the roof. That is the entire idea. That is the whole secret. The access cover went on top, where nothing structural was happening. The sides of the case stayed as one continuous piece of iron. Ford poured the whole thing as a single casting and machined the shaft bores into solid material. The men on the shop floor called it the Toploader, and the result is something restorers still talk about. Go read the identification guides written by the people who tear these apart for a living. They will tell you that in very rare instances were these cases ever damaged. Gears fail, bearings fail, synchronizers wear out like they do in everything. The case itself mostly just sits there and takes it, decade after decade, because there is no seam running down the loaded side of it. That matters more than it sounds. A cracked case is a dead transmission. Everything else is a parts order. Ford called it something else. In the engineering documents, it was the 3.03 Ford design 4-speed. 3.03 is not a gear ratio. It is not a displacement. It is the distance in inches between the center line of the main shaft and the center line of the countershaft. Ford named the strongest 4-speed in Detroit after a measurement almost nobody would ever look up. That was not modesty. That was Ford product planning doing what Ford product planning always did. The engineering won. The marketing never showed up. Go find the advertising from 1965. Ford sold the Mustang on style. Ford sold the Galaxy on size. Nowhere in any of it does anyone explain that the 4-speed underneath had a solid sidewall while the competition was running a bolted-on plate. The customer never knew. The customer just noticed it did not break. And the competition never followed. Chevrolet kept the side cover on the Muncie all the way through 1974. Chrysler kept it on the A833. Both of those are good transmissions, and both of them earned their reputations honestly. But both of them kept the service door in the side of the case, because that is where the tooling already was, and that is where the shift linkage already lived. Moving it meant redesigning the shift rails, the forks, and the cover casting all at once. Ford did that work one time and never mentioned it again. Now the specifics, because this audience owns these boxes. 2 ratio sets. The wide ratio ran 2.78 in first, 1.93 in second, 1.36 in third, and direct drive in fourth. The close ratio ran 2.32, 1.69, 1.29, and direct. You can sort them by counting teeth on second gear. 28 teeth is close ratio. 31 teeth is wide. Input shafts came in 2 diameters, both carrying 10 splines. The small blocks and the 390 got a 1 1/16 inch input. The 427, the 428, and the Boss cars got the 31 spline output to match. And here is where Ford's record stops being clean. The 1964 and early 1965 cars went out the door with 25 spline output shafts. Those shafts twisted. Some of them broke. Ford revised the design to 28 splines and kept the line moving. There was no campaign, no announcement, no letter to owners. The part quietly got better, and the failure quietly stopped being discussed. So if you are shopping a top loader today and the seller cannot tell you the spline count, walk away. The identification tags are fastened to the passenger side of the case. Tags beginning HEH are the early units, roughly 1964 through 1966. RUG replaced it in 1967. To sort a 4-speed from a 3-speed, count the fasteners on the top cover. 10 bolts is a 4-speed.
9 bolts is a 3-speed. Depending on which specialist you ask, Ford built well north of 100 distinct versions of this transmission. One published identification guide counts 133. Different case lengths, different bolt patterns, different shaft combinations, all wearing the same name. Forward gears are helical cut and fully synchronized. Reverse is a spur gear, and it is not synchronized. That is why a top loader will still grind going backward if you rush it. That is not wear. That is the design. It went everywhere. Mustangs and Cougars, Galaxies and Torinos and Rancheros, Shelby cars, behind the Boss 429, into the Sunbeam Tiger and into TVRs and into Cobras. That last one is worth stopping on. A Cobra is a very light car with a very large engine and almost nothing between the driver and the consequences. When a gearbox lets go in a fair lane on a Tuesday, you call a tow truck. When a gearbox lets go in a Cobra at speed, it is a different kind of afternoon. Carroll Shelby's cars got the big input top loader, and they got it because the alternative had already proven what it would do. Then Ford stopped. The top loader left Ford passenger cars in 1973. It hung on in trucks and in Jeeps into the mid-1980s, doing quiet work in vehicles nobody was writing magazine articles about. That should be the end of it. It is not. Go back to 1964 again. That same year, the Mexican government passed a local content law. If you assembled a vehicle in Mexico, the major components had to be built in Mexico. Ford needed transmissions, and Ford did not have a plant. So Ford partnered with an American supplier called Clark and a group of Mexican entrepreneurs, and together they founded a company in Mexico City, Transmisiones y Equipos Mecánicos. You know it as Tremec. And the first transmission Tremec ever manufactured, the product that put that company into business, was the Ford Toploader. Ford let it go. The tooling went south. The name on the case became the T170. In the trade, it stopped being a Ford transmission and started being a Tremec. That company did not disappear. It kept building gearboxes. It grew. Today, Tremec is one of the largest performance transmission manufacturers on the planet, and its units sit behind modern V8s in cars that Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler all sell right now. Which means Ford buys transmissions from a company Ford helped create to build a transmission Ford stopped wanting. The Muncie is a museum piece. The A833 is a museum piece. The Toploader turned into a corporation. Ford never put the reason on a single brochure. Ford moved a cover from the side of a case to the top of it, filed the result under a number nobody would look up, and walked away from the strongest thing in the building. The mechanics named it. Ford never did.